Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2020 Chevy Suburban, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit. But before we do that, why don't we check it out and make sure that this is something that's going to work for you. So before we get too carried away, kind of talking about the diode wiring and how it works and things like that, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of refresh ourselves and touch base on the main components that we're going to need to flat tow our vehicle down the road in the first place. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Chevy down the road safely. First one's going to be the base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid and reliable attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. The tow bar is going to be the second component, and this is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of your vehicle to the back of your coach. The third main component will be safety cables, and these are pretty straightforward here. These are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring. And what this is going to do is transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Suburban. That way people know what's going on behind you and you'll be safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main component will be the supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your SUV whenever you hit the brakes in your coach, helping to bring you to a more complete and predictable stop. So right now is a perfect example on how the diode wiring is going to work. So we got the left turn signal going on our motorhome, and it's being transferred to the back of our Chevy here. And you're not just going to get your turn signals, you're also going to get your tail lights and your brake lights. So you'll have all your bases covered and you'll be safe. With that said, when it comes to tow bar wiring, I always like to recommend the diode wiring like we have here today. Really because it's super reliable, really haven't ran into a ton of issues at all with them, and we've done a lot of them. More importantly, really easy to set up. Once it's installed, there's essentially one step to it, and that seems like a lot of people are concerned with that. And I think it looks the best too. It's just clean. Once everything's in, it's going to look completely factory. You're not going to be able to tell you really have anything modified, and that's compared to another type of lighting called magnetic lighting. Those work and get the job done, but they're kind of a pain, especially on a big vehicle like this, because those it's gonna require you to set them up and take them off every time that you want to flat tow or disconnect. And they have magnetic bases, so they'll stick to the body of your vehicle. You'll have to run wires all the way up to the back of your motorhome, and it's kind of just a hassle. And then not to mention too, storing them. When you're over the road, storage is key. It's a huge deal to a lot of people, and so anything you can do to free up some space is worth it, in my opinion. And not having to deal with a big huge bundle of wires and some lights definitely goes a long way. When you use diodes like this, you're not going to have to worry about messing with that. So I talked about how easy it is to hook up, and you're just going to have a connector here at the front of your vehicle. And you're going to take the end of the cable, that'll plug into there. Then the other end of that cable is going to run and plug into the back of your motorhome. So there are several different kits available, and really the only thing that changes with them is what type of cable you're going to get. And I really just want to go over all of them. That way you make sure you get the one that's most appropriate for your particular setup. So the one that we have here today is the kit that comes with a straight cable like this one here. And you want to use a straight cable if your tow bar has channels in it. So for, exactly that reason, ours has the channels. So we have the straight cable. That way you can run the cable through those channels. Another option for you, if you have channels in your tow bar, would be the hybrid type. Okay, so the part closest to the motorhome will have a coil in it, and the rest of it will be straight. And this is useful for those of you that might have a really long tow bar, or maybe use a high-low adapter, and it really makes the gap big in between your truck and your motorhome. this is probably the longest cable available. So that's a good option for you. Both of these are going to have a 7-way round that'll go into the motorhome side, and on the other end a 6-way that'll go into the vehicle side. If your tow bar does not have channels, you can get the kit that has the coiled cable. So again, 7 and 6. The coils will stretch out like this and keep it up off the ground when you're going straight, but then give you that extra length that you need. It'll stretch out when you're making those turns and things like that. By far, those are probably our 3 most popular kits, the most common. But there is some other ones available too for those of you that might have kind of a different scenario. This one here is a coiled cable. It has a 7-way round that'll go into the motorhome, then a 4-way round that'll go into the front. You know, these work just fine. I always suggest the 6-ways though, the 6-way rounds, because it gives you a couple more pins you can do things with if you ever want to upgrade in the future or anything like that. And if you're going through the trouble to install it, might as well go that route, at least in my opinion, but still an option. And then probably the least common is this one. So this kit just has a 4-way flat connector. It's a 4-way flat. You know, maybe on some of the older motorhomes, this would be applicable, but really don't see a lot of these, but it is an option. And then last but not least, there's a kit that just kind of comes with the bare bones, is how I like to refer to, where it just comes with the main bundle of wires, some connectors, your diodes. It doesn't come with a cable or a connector plug. And that's because some of the more premium tow bars actually come with those components already. So, for example, the Roadmaster Nighthawk, that comes with a cable and the connector plug. So if that's what you're gonna end up using, or you know, one that has those things already, you want to get that bare bones kit, because it don't make sense to buy stuff that you already have. So with that said, you know, depending on your setup, there's always going to be an option available for you. But at the end of the day, a kit you really can't go wrong with. It's going to look good, be reliable, and most importantly, easy to use and set up whenever you are ready to flat tail. You're not going to be wasting a bunch of time. As far as the installation goes, it's not too bad. You are going to have to, you know, hook up some wires and things like that, but everything's really open and easy to see and understand. It is time consuming just having to route the wires from the front here to the back, but I'll show you a couple tricks that I use, and hopefully that'll speed things up for you. So as long as you take your time, really shouldn't run into too many issues. But speaking of that, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and do that together now. To begin our wiring installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Suburban, and first thing we need to do is hook up our connector plug. And so what I've done here is just drilled a small opening right here. We really don't have a ton of spots to mount this up, so by drilling this out, it gives us a really clean setup here. So before we do that, we're going to kind of get our wiring ready. So I just took one end of the wiring, fed it through the hole, and we're going to separate the wires from each other. So you carefully cut in between them and pull them apart a few inches. If I can manage to get this one. And what I like to do is just put them all back together, kind of cut off maybe a ½ inch just to give everything a fresh start there. Then we're going to strip back the insulation. So about like that'll work, and you want to give each wire a good twist to help out with that connection. Do the same thing for our 3 remaining wires. So once we have the wires stripped, you're going to take your dust cover, just slide that on. We'll push it out kind of off to the side for now. Now we can get ready to get our wires hooked up. So if you grab the connector plug, you're going to have set screws, And the trick is just to loosen them up pretty much all the way without getting them to come completely out. If they come out, they're kind of hard to not only find, but actually get back in there. But we're going to be using 4 of the 6 terminals. So this one here, it'll be labeled GD for ground, so the white wire will go to it. This one here is labeled LT for left turn, so the yellow wire will go to that one. This is labeled RT for right turn, so the green wire will go to it. And then this one up top here is labeled TM for taillights, so the brown wire will go to it. So we're just going to take the appropriate wire, put it in the appropriate terminal, and simply just tighten down our set screw. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing to get the rest of our wires hooked up. So this is what the connector plug's gonna look like all hooked up. And once we have that done, I'll take our dust cover, slide that over. What I usually do is put some dielectric grease and some sealer on them terminals, but I wait till the very end of the flat test setup to do that. Just that way if I have to get back in here, it's not a huge mess. But for now, we'll do the trick. Pop that through. I did a moment ago, and I just eyeball everything and drilled a couple holes in it. That way I can take some of our hardware and put this through and get it secured. So underneath our vehicle now, I started to route our wires. So it comes out the back of the plug, and up and over. And when you're doing this, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. But with that said, I push the wire in through the frame rail and ran it through the frame. And I'll show you exactly how I did that here in a minute. But for now, it just runs through the frame. Continues on inside here. And like I said, I'll show you the trick that I use to make that a lot easier. And right here, it's going to come out of a hole in the side of the frame. And what I want to do is just ground out our white wire. That way we can have the length of it for a step here in the future. And it's a good spot. So what I'm going to do is take our wire and just very carefully cut just the white wire. All right. And I'll separate the ends. This end that goes just to nothing, just to the end of the wire here, we're eventually going to take all that off, just peel all this off and save the length of wire for later. But for now, let's focus on this. So this end is actually the side of the white wire that's going to our 6-way connector plug. And we're going to strip back our insulation. So you'll grab the ring terminal, slide that over the bare end of the wire, and crimp that down. I was just going to say it's not a bad idea to give it a little pull too, just to make sure, especially if you're using a pair of crimps like these. They're not the greatest in the world by any means, but we're making do here. So it's on there nice and tight. And then we're going to connect this to the body of our vehicle, so metal portion here. And this is easy to get to and kind of out of the way. So I'm going to take our self-tapping screw and run this down. So with that secured, we're going to continue to route our wiring, what's left of it, towards the back of our vehicle. So the way I'm getting our wiring through the frame is I'm just going from like hole to hole here in the frame rail, and I'm using a pull wire. So this is a piece of nylon tubing. You could use a coat hanger or something like that. But I just taped one end of the wiring to that. And this being pretty stiff just makes it a lot easier to kind of guide our wire where we want it to go. So That's how I'm getting this done here. I'll probably stop right here and just start to router wire up now that we kind of cleared the danger zone, if you will. And it's starting to get pretty busy. You know, the frame is there towards the back. So this will probably be the last spot where I'll do this. I'll probably just shoot the wiring up and continue on back along our frame there. So I got the wire continued towards the back where it comes out of our hole. And I just brought it up and zip tied it along the way. And it's just gonna run. It's a little tricky to see, but it's just gonna continue to run straight back towards the rear of our vehicle. So our wiring comes on out through here, up through here, and then at this point, I separated our green wire from the yellow and brown, and then I attached that extra piece of white wire that we had saved. So our yellow and brown wire, I just taped that extra white wire to the end of it, and this is all eventually going to run up to the driver's side taillight pocket. The green wire and that other end of the white wire, I taped those together and routed these along the back of our bumper over towards the passenger side. So just rain them on along. Really come down right here. And what we're gonna do is just kind of let these hang for now. We can go up top and get our taillights removed. That way we can figure out what wire does what and get everything hooked up. Now up top here, we need to get our taillights removed. So we're gonna have this plastic cover. You can open up your hatch, and we need to get this cover off to get access to the fasteners. So I'm just using a plastic trim tool. Things are in here pretty good, so you don't have to do some prying. And I'm just gonna kind of try to work it up slowly. These things are kind of just pressed in by these clips. So with that out of the way, now we can get to our fasteners. So we're gonna have two. They're gonna be a Torx bit head, and they're gonna be a T15 in size. Go ahead and get these out. Get that one on the bottom, this one on the top. And then we can get our light pulled out. So with these, sometimes they can be kind of tricky. This one actually come out pretty good. A lot of times you can wobble and pull back and get it to free. Sometimes you might just have to kind of use the palm of your hand and kind of hit it and put pressure towards the back to get it to pop free, but like I said, it's all kind of just the luck of the draw there. We're gonna have a few things you need to disconnect. One of them, there's a metal clip. It goes around our wire there. Hopefully I don't drop that. So that's all that is. Just pop it off. And we're gonna disconnect our lights. So these are quarter turns. You just turn them about a quarter turn, they'll pop free. So I have 3 of those. And last but not least, this one connector here. Push down on the center of it. And then we can take our taillight assembly, set it off to the side, and repeat the same process to get the other one removed. So now with the taillights out, we can actually get our wiring pulled up into the taillight pocket. So what I've done is just used a fish wire, kind of the same deal that we did with our frame to get our wiring through the frame. Just dropped it down through the taillight pocket, and now we can pull it up where it needs to be. Get all that slack pulled out of it. I'm gonna trim it to length. I like to give us maybe an extra foot of wire to work with. Because why not? Rather have it and not need it than the other way around. And now we can get these wires ready. So I'm going to try to split these here. Make do with this. So we're going to strip back the insulation. And all three of these ends. And start to crimp on some of our terminals. So yellow one is going to receive a blue terminal. So we'll crimp that on down. And then the white and brown wires, we're going to do something a little different with those. You're actually going to twist these together. Get them nice and tight. And those, you're going to take the yellow terminal, put that over both the ends, and get it crimped down. Just like that. So now what we can do is identify what factory wires do what. And so we're looking for our taillight signal and our stoplight signal. So I tested the wires. I turned our signals on and used a test light to check each individual wire to see what one lights up. And what I came up with was this skinny brown wire, this one that's going to a plug here. That's going to be our taillight signal. And then the green wire going to the bottom bulb, that's going to be our stop and turn. That's what we're going to hook into there. So with that said, we're going to get these ready. So we'll start with our brown wire. And this was all taped up. I kind of like to pull everything apart just to give us more room to work. But we're going to strip that back. Get these ends stripped. And all these that we're about to do are all going to receive blue terminals. And what we're doing with this here is we're putting these on, that way we can plug them into our diodes. And that's going to complete the circuit so we can get everything to work. But with that one done, what we'll do is you're going to take the side closest to the connector plug, you're going to take a diode, and it'll be a single terminal, it'll say out. That's the one you want closest to the connector plug. The other side, go to either one, don't matter. And since this controls our taillight signal, we're going to take our new wiring and plug that in. So the white and brown wire will go there. So just like that. With the green wire being our stop and turn, I'm going to essentially do the same exact thing, cut it in half, crimp on our diodes, and hook this up. So I'll just do that now. And since we already went over how to do one, I'll have that one done and show you what it looks like. So I went ahead and got this other diode hooked up. So like I said, the green wire going to our bottom bulb. That's for the stop and turn. So I cut it, crimped on the spade terminals, and hooked it up the same exact way we did the other one. Plugged it into the diodes. Single terminal closest to the bulb. That's how you want to set that up. And then our new yellow wire is going to get plugged into that diode there. So that's how it should be all set up. And what we can do now is grab our taillight and get it reinstalled. So these will just go the opposite way. The quarter turns, you just find it till they sit flush, and then you can lock it down. And pretty straightforward here. Once everything's plugged in, I can get to it. Just make sure our diodes kind of sit in a good position. Let's get everything lined back up. So over here on the passenger side, I went ahead and did the same exact thing. So I set it up just like the other side essentially. The OEM or factory wire colors are the same. Brown wire controls taillight signal. Green wire controls stop and turn. So did the diodes the same. The only difference is over here, the new white wire that we ran, that's for our taillights. So that'll get plugged into the diode with our factory brown wires. And the new green wire that we ran, that's going to be controlling for our stop and turn. So that goes to the diode with the factory green wire. So pretty simple there. This is how it turned out. And once we have it done, again, over here, we'll get our taillight reinstalled. So that's a good idea to test your wiring to make sure that it all works properly. So I'm using a test box. If you use your motorhome, keep in mind, if your motorhome has issues, that's going to translate back to here. So just something to think about. But with that said, we're going to try our taillights, our left turn, our right turn, and our brake lights.
Okay, here we are with Gary and Phillips, and we're going to go over their flat toe setup with them today, show them how everything works and where we installed everything on the Suburban. So it's a 2020 Suburban.
C71.
Yeah, so really nice truck. So first of all, we've got the system all put on here, so I'll show you where everything is. So the guys hide things pretty well, and they do a lot of good work as far as putting wire loom all over everything and making it all really nice. So this is your battery disconnect, and that's the part that there's a momentary switch inside. We'll show you here in just a minute. And then this here is your fuse for your braking system. So if the braking system's ever just not working, this is the first place to check.
Okay.
And you just pop the top off and the fuse is inside there. And then the Air Force One is over here in the secondary battery tray location. So some of these trucks are diesel, so they have a second battery location usually, but since you don't have the second battery and you have the gas motor, that's your Air Force One right there. It ties into your vacuum booster right here with this hose. And then that's the only thing that actually ties into any systems on the car is that vacuum right there for the vacuum booster. Everything else is just the braking system itself and power from the battery over there.
Okay.
So then inside the car here, I'll show you the breakaway or the switch for the solenoid. It's really hard to see, so I'm going to point at it, and then I'll let you get in here and look at it. It has a chrome bezel around it, so you'll be able to see it. But when you press it, you can kind of hear it.
I did,
Okay, so if you want to
And when you press
check
on
it out
that,
there. So that's battery off. Everything in the truck went off.
Okay.
And you press it again, and it's battery on.
Okay.
So that's that. And then on, if you want to fly in there, on the brake pedal, you'll see a big cylinder and a cable that pulls the brake pedal to the floor. And since you have adjustable pedals, always when you're setting up to tow, you want to adjust the pedals all the way out.
Okay.
That way the pedals, whenever they're adjusted to any other person at any place, it can never affect driving the car.
Okay.
So that's why we do it all the way out. And then other than that, we've got your tow bar and safety cables here. So we've got some really big safety cables because of the weight of the Suburban. And then the tow bar is pretty simple to use. When they're new, they're a little stiff to move. You move them like this. If you're going to store it, you can store it either way. Most people will grab a tow bar cover and just kind of get everything up in the cover and just leave it on the motorhome when they're camping. And then, you know, it'd be good to take it off and store it, like if you're not going to be going anywhere for a long period of time.
Right.
Just to keep it out of the sun and whatnot. This is your airline cable for your braking system, and here's your breakaway cable for the braking system. So we'll just go ahead and get it hooked up. I'll let you do that side, I'll do this side. Just pick it up, get it to where it'll swing down, and then just pull them apart. And then this pin comes out, and you want to always go your pin outside in so that your pin goes through here.
inside to in.
Yeah. And I guess before we get too far there, I'll show you over here. So to remove this, these when you're not towing and you're just driving around town, you just pull this pin and turn. So you just pull out on the pin, turn, and it'll pop right out.
All right.
And then to put it back in, you don't have to pull on the ring or anything. You just push it in and turn, and you feel it lock in. So that's good. And you always want these ears to the inside.
Okay.
And just put it there. Go through there and make sure your snapper pin goes through there, and make sure this always snaps down. And you want to keep your fingers out of the way because that hurts.
Okay.
I've done that a lot of times on tractors. Then you've got your 6 round, and the only thing I want to point out there is there's a ridge. That ridge is always 12 o'clock.
Okay.
And that runs the lighting and gives you your brake signal for the braking system. And it runs through the tow bar here and goes to the 7-way and plugs right into the 7-way. And we've tested all that, made sure everything was working. The only other thing is the safety cables. Now this is a Blackhawk tow bar. And if you ever decide to tow a smaller vehicle, you can run the safety cables through this channel that's on here that this straight cables ran through. But since these cables are heavy duty for the weight of the Suburban, you're not going to be able to do that. And these hooks are awful large for the safety chain loops that they give you here on the base plate.
Okay.
So we got you these 10,000 pound quick links to attach there. So you just put them in there. And hang on a second, I'm sorry. So sometimes I'm not thinking. You're supposed to cross these cables just in case there ever is a breakaway of the tow bar and the cables are still hooked up. It'll kind of keep the tow bar off the ground and keep it from digging into the ground and causing you a problem. So always make sure that side goes to this side and this side goes to that side. That was my fault. I should have remembered that. And you don't have to tighten these up with a wrench or anything, just finger tights. Right. Really good. They'll actually probably be a little too tight if you run into any rain or road grime or anything.
Right.
You might need a little pair of pliers to undo them.
Okay.
Then you've got your air line there. I wanted to show the plastic caps. So you got a small cap for the front of the car that you always want to keep on here when you're not towing, and a large cap for this end of the cable for when you're not towing. That keeps all the dirt out of the air system, and then you can stow your cord somewhere. But to go on, it's just like an air compressor chuck there, and then you can do the front side here. And this is one thing I always recommend getting a second set of these. They're just rubber caps for the Air Force, SMI Air Force One.
Okay.
And they just keep the dirt out of the system. And then that's it, except for the breakaway switch, which is right here.
Okay.
And so this is not all the way out yet, so these are plenty. You don't have to worry about wrapping them around the tow bar or anything. They're not going to drag the ground. If you do see them stretching out to where they do get that way, you could throw it around the tow bar one time. Just make sure it's not going to get involved here where it's pivoting and pinch the cables. So on the breakaway, it's just this right here. And this little wire cable needs to always stay on there with that plastic thing to keep the two contacts separated so that it doesn't apply the Air Force One brakes. And this little box here stores some air in case of a breakaway, and then that'll apply the brakes. And then otherwise there's a tank underneath that's tied into your air brakes on the coach that actually works the Air Force One system, so you're not using the air for stopping the coach to stop the car. It's actually auxiliary air that's pushed into that tank while you're just driving along. So, and then yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it for setting up and getting ready to go. Yeah, so that's putting the truck in neutral is always something you always want to use your owner's manual on. So we don't give instruction on that, but we'll go through it with you with your owner's manual, and that's different for every vehicle. So we'll do that here in a minute right before you take off.
All right.
And
Very good.
that should do it.
And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit on our 2020 Chevrolet Suburban.